I've always been an alchemist, transmuting what remains after destruction, creating something new, hopefully infusing the innocence, love, and light that was lost, building with broken shards that make my hands bleed. Loss doesn't just come from death, but from what was supposed to be and never will. That feeling of grief swells, and then the almost unthinkable question hits. What next? Welcome to the Obliterated Place for all the brokenhearted, a space dedicated to creating something from the unrecognizable remnants of loss in its many forms. A place to witness one another's grief and choose to honor grief through our actions, big and small. I'm Kaye Steinsapir. Thanks for joining us today. Hello, welcome back to the Obliterated Place. I am your host, Kaye Steinsapir. If you're joining us for the first time today, thank you so much. If you're coming back, we appreciate you. I am here today with my good friend and neighbor in the Palisades, Michael Geller. Hi, Mike.
Hi. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I thought this would be fun. We've known each other for some time now.
Of course, yeah. Our community is so close. And I mean, I really... Part of why I created the podcast was after the fires, we were all literally in an obliterated place, right? In every sense of the word. And many of us still are. Most of us still are.
I mean, I know I am. As you know,
yeah.
We lost everything. I mean, my business, all the inventory, our home, everything we had in there. I mean, I left with one pair of shoes, 3 pairs of socks, 3 pairs of underwear, thinking, hey, we're I kept telling Jamie, oh, it's never going to get to us. It's, we're going to, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. They'll get it out, they'll get it out. Like in the beginning, we saw the helicopters, we saw the planes, and I thought to myself, oh, cool. Mm-hmm. The boys are here. Like, we're going to be good.
Yeah, because this is not something totally unfamiliar to us in the Palisades. There are brush fires. This is not something we have never seen.
As you know, I am born and raised in the Palisades. I attended Palisades Elementary since kindergarten. I've been, at Kaye since I can remember. Bar mitzvahed, married, I've been in the community forever. We've seen fires. We've seen high wind events, I'm out there surfing on the heavy Santa Anas when it's blowing offshore. I remember when pre-deployment was a regular thing. Our parents used to go out and give the guys in the trucks that would come and park. I grew up on Via de los Olas, which is a big bluff, So the guys that was one of the spots where they would station top of Chautauqua, top of Bienvenida, top of El Medio. These were all places my friends and I went to, go party. And our parents would go out and give the guys sandwiches, lemonade while they were hanging out.
Right.
Just hanging out.
Yeah.
So I remember all of
when you say pre-deployment for our guests and our audience who don't know what that means. What is that?
Basically, like Station 23, Station 69, which are 2 local stations. They would get in their trucks and they would drive out to high risk areas or access areas where they knew where there's gates. There's gates at the top of most of these places I've said, so that they can open the gate, hit the fire road, and they have access to our Santa Monica Conservancy, Canyon Ridge, where they can be ready to go if something happens to break out.
Right.
Basically.
Right.
And they would send their boys up to these areas, and usually they're close to residential. And I know my dad would go out and offer these guys lemonade and sandwiches, and it was very, very tight community. I mean, our one police officer my parents would have over for dinners. We would invite the fire chiefs to, parties. It was very tight back in those days. Yeah. Very tight. Yeah. Much less people, much less traffic. I mean, I rode a moped to Paul Revere on Sunset, in 7th grade, and nobody even balked.
Right.
Nobody cared.
Yeah.
I think I got pulled over once, and then my dad was like, okay, you have to drive. Back then it was Save On. It was not CVS.
Right.
And we would have to drive our motorized little toy to Save On, and we would lock it up at the bike path and then jump on the bus at Village Green and go to Paul Revere. these were days when we did not have the saturation that we have now.
The density, you mean?
Yeah.
And Paul Revere is our local middle school, for those of you who don't know.
Thank you. Yes,
I'll add, little things like that. Kaye is our local synagogue that Mike and I are both members of. So obviously, because the Palisades is your home for your entire life and some place that's so important and so integral to you, can you describe your feelings as you watched what was happening and what you've seen since then? Like, what has it been like for you?
It's been really hard. It's been a fight. It's been a fight everywhere I turn. It's been a fight for insurance. We were set to be dropped on January 28th. I'll put it out there. We made it on by the hair of our chinny chin chin.
Yeah, wow.
We had our fair plan paperwork filled out. We were ready to make.
I did not even know that. Wow.
We were ready to make the transfer. And literally Nancy, my insurance adjuster I've known for some time now, she's amazing. She's the sweetest little lady. And she made a joke. She's like, let's just wait and see if your house burns before you.
Jeez.
Yeah, before you actually send the check to Fair Plan. Let's just hold off on that for a second. So we had just also finished the house. We had done a big major remodel. We left like a few walls and held up the roof with 2x4s. And we hadn't even had our CFO yet. We had been scheduled to get our final inspection on like the 9th or the 10th, I forget when Jamie had it scheduled.
And Jamie is Mike's wife.
Jamie's my wife.
Yes.
Been married 27 years.
Three boys.
3 boys, all gone to the same schools as their dad, Palisades Elementary. Actually, we skipped Paul Revere. I felt like I had to skip that part. But yeah, went to Pali. My older son graduated from Palisades High School during the fire. Not to get off subject, but he was on the golf team, and 4 of his teammates lost their homes. All their golf clubs burned. Several manufacturers came to the aid of our school and provided new equipment.
Really nice.
And they ended up winning the CIF championship.
Amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
During the fire.
Yeah, these kids have all been through so much,
It's
between COVID
crazy.
And
one of my children literally went to school that day and was picked up by my dad to find out that everything that he knew was gone.
Right.
He didn't get to choose what Legos he took and what, clothing he took. And at the time he was, I think, 10 and a half. And it's been really hard on him still.
Yeah, my kids too. Eli's 10. Same. And even though, our house somehow survived, although most of our street burned down, our house survived. But
I'm so thankful for that, by the way. I know that everybody has had their troubles. Everybody has had to go through fighting with insurance in some way and getting coverage in some way. And, some people have made the comment like, you're almost lucky that your house burned all the way down.
Well, none of us are lucky, that's for sure. None of us are lucky, and I think we're all unlucky in different ways.
For me, and this is just me personally, I'm not speaking for anybody, just me, I would have preferred my house to not burn down. Even if I would have had to come out of pocket to handle, we lost things that are just absolutely irreplaceable. And that's just me.
That's true for us, for sure. And I've said the same thing, and especially because of Molly. Absolutely. We're really grateful our house didn't burn down. Our kids, I think thought that they would be able to salvage their things, and then they weren't. They ended up losing all of their toys, books, clothing, everything in the house had to be thrown away for the most part. But we did manage to, at least get out a few things that we couldn't replace. So for us, definitely, we're really glad it didn't burn down. But I do know, like, for example, our friends, the Greens, Lyle Green was a guest on the podcast. I think they will be back in their house. They live across the street from us. Their house, unfortunately, did burn down. Their home was under construction, and then they were living in a rental, and both of those burned down. But I think they are going to be back on our street in their new home, new construction, before We are back in a house that did not burn down,
Wow.
which is insane. You could build a new house.
Lyle's the best. You know,
Of course.
we're all friends.
All friends.
I love Lyle.
Yeah.
He's the best. Mel is awesome. Their girls are awesome. I'm so happy for them. That's amazing.
Yeah. So I wouldn't call any of us lucky.
Yeah,
we're all unlucky in
so it's been a
different
fight,
ways.
you know?
It's a struggle. But I mean,
I'm still dealing with my insurance. That's like under investigation. There's all these mishandlings of claims.
I
And
know it's such a
blah
nightmare.
blah blah.
Yeah.
And I'm on my 4th adjuster.
Which
For
insurance
the
company
home,
do you have?
I had State Farm for my house.
God.
For my business, actually, they were amazing. I so wish that
State Farm?
No, State Farm. I was insured with. So my business was a little complicated. I actually had 2 separate policies. One of my policies which was with Lloyd's of London, who I would stay with forever. They are absolutely amazing. I was almost all the way insured, not quite. Just the dynamics of how we take in inventory. I represent 35 other artisans. I have other brands. Some of those brands I own 60%. They supplement me with 40%, what we would call consignment, where they give me the merchandise free, then I sell it, and then I pay them after the merchandise sells, right?
For our audience, Mike had a jewelry store. His
Yes,
wife, Jamie
my wife
Geller.
and I own Jamie Geller Jewelry in Pacific Palisades. We opened our shop. Well, I sort of retired my parents in 2007. I took over the shop in 2007 with Jamie and I both together. And so everybody had to be made whole, right? 35 different brands. I had jewelry that there was actually a fire in the safe. It was
unbelievable.
so hot, 1,700 degrees minimum. Yeah. And when the safe fell over, because our space had been part of, the Lee Foundation building on Antioch. It's one of the oldest buildings in the Palisades.
Right.
My family had been operating there since '82. So the floor was like an old dance studio, like from back in the day. And as it burned, the safe fell over on its side. God. And so anything that was on the door just was incinerated, evaporated. Yeah. Piles of molten, like just blobs of gold and
Crazy.
Diamonds and stones that were just absorbed into the blob of the gold.
Are any of those diamonds or anything able to be retrieved?
It's
or
funny.
collected?
Everybody asks me
that's an
that question. What happens with diamonds is that they actually they do burn, in the sense that their outer layer turns like a brownish color, and you can't just like polish that off. It actually has to be recut so that you can bring the luster back of the stone itself. So
no.
Technically, yes, but it costs money,
Yeah.
and it's a process, and you lose you lose weight, which so then you're spending money to lose money on the situation. So like basically Lloyd's of London just came in and said, we'll take everything, video, so after the fire, everyone was trying to get back in. Right? We all wanted to get back in. I now had a giant safe exposed in the middle of Antioch Street, just sitting there on its side.
Full of diamonds.
Full of diamonds, full of
insane.
gold, full of money, whatever was in
crazy.
there.
Yeah.
Other people's jewelry, because I also do repairs and I do custom work and I take in other community member stuff. Actually, it's crazy. Some stuff did survive, which is a miracle. Anything that was on top of sort of the pile kind of did a lot better than stuff and was able to be, refurbished. So a few people, I had a couple engagement rings I had just done, a remodel of a woman who had been married for almost 40 years. It survived. She got her stuff back, which I was so thankful for that. Right. And so basically I had this safe sitting in the middle of Antioch. And, I don't know if you guys remember, but cars were burned up. Right. And me, I think everything is a racket, right? So we had these tow companies that were coming in and like towing cars for storage fees and for the they were allowed in. And I was thinking to myself, dude, one of these guys could very easily just come and slide this safe onto their tow truck and book out, right? I had a very large amount of inventory in there. Multi-millions of dollars worth of inventory was in there. So I wanted to get back as quickly as possible. So I ended up using one of my employees' roommates was a journalist for a French television network. And so she was able to use her press pass. You know, anybody with a press pass was getting in to do interviews. So I, told the insurance company, hey, I'm going to get in. My friend, Hartbill Construction, we all know Chuck Hart, one of our local contractors in the Palisades. He's going to help me with the crane and lift the thing. He like went in and grabbed it with the teeth and lifted it up and put it on his flatbed, and we took it back to his house. This was 3 days after the fire. I was like stressing out. Like, I got to get in there. Like, forget about my house. Like, I got to get, this is more important. I got to get the inventory. So we got that to his house, and the insurance company basically said to me, Lloyd's in London, videotape everything. Videotape you getting the safe open, videotape you looking in at the very first moment, just so we can document everything and, the damage. So I went ahead and did that. I loaded all of the merchandise that I literally put on the gloves, put on the mask, crawled and actually had my son, who's smaller than me, 19 years old, I think 17 and a half at the time, crawl in there and start scooping out, literally with like shovels and gloves, scooping out whatever inventory was in there. And we put it in 2 big Home Depot painter's buckets that we got from the line. We all went through the line to get the white suits and the and the hazmat gear so that we could go sifting through our homes. So, long story short, had the 2 buckets, basically handed that over to my insurance agent, and they wrote me a check pretty quickly for the inventory itself. I had a business policy that was, I kind of have a bone to pick for my other agent who had me have this business policy which covered like workers' comp, some furniture, some computers and whatever, but it was very underinsured. I didn't realize. I should have read the deck page a little bit better, and they gave me I was happy that all the inventory was covered. I was able to pay my vendors, the other brands. I had a single mom who had, she just got into the jewelry business. She had all her merchandise with me. And it just was toast. The whole thing was toast. So I was able to make her whole so she could go out and make, another collection and still begin to operate. So even people not even in the Palisades were affected by this whole thing, and so my business insurance
not great.
Barely kicked out, a little bit of money, but I still kept everybody employed while we were doing the transfer, figuring out what to do, where to relocate,
Well, it's exciting, amazing news that you are relocating, reopening.
It is very exciting.
When is that scheduled?
Thank God for these 3 kids from Pali, Build Back Pali. They gave several small businesses grants that went directly to rent in the form of rent, so that they are the reason why we are able to come back to the Palisades. I mean, they're the one entity that has actually, helped us return. And so July 1st, we're hoping to be open. We're so happy that the parade is coming back.
Yeah, we are too.
I've been to every single parade since I was a child, since the thing started.
Are you going to be in the same location?
No, we're going to be next in between Wells Fargo and Prima.
Okay.
We all love our Prima restaurant.
Yeah, okay. So not too far, though.
Back in my day, it was Kaye and Dave's.
Yeah.
Actually, Dave owns that building, and Dave also reached out to us. So with a combination of Dave, who is our landlord from the original Kaye and Dave's, he owns the building, that portion of the building. He offered us also free rent along with the grants so that we could come back to the Palisades. And without those 2 entities helping us, there's no way we would have been able
it's been a struggle
to pull it off.
It's a nightmare for everyone, and
so we're very thankful. July 1st, come and visit us. We want to sort of be a little hub for the 4th of July parade. We're going to try to be out there and hanging out and giving hugs and saying hi to everybody. Come commiserate, come say hi. come laugh with us, and we're really excited to be
We'll
back.
definitely be there. We're gonna have a big Team Molly.
Be part
contingent.
of the group of, you know, businesses or drive to bring our small business community back to the Palisades. We need that so badly.
course. Yeah,
You know,
of course.
if we don't do that, then our community will turn into something very different.
Yeah, well, I know it's already difficult for people who are back because there just aren't enough businesses open, grocery stores.
A lot
like
of people
basics.
are not coming
Yeah.
because there isn't that sort of that infrastructure.
Yeah.
And then if those people don't come, like, we know that our markets have their formula. They don't want to come back until there's a certain amount of residential presence. I know that for Gelson's.
Yeah,
I've been going to Gelson's since I literally was 10 years old.
right.
It's wild to not
Yeah.
be able to go there and
Right.
see my, the sushi guy makes my children like, sushi fresh for them. Like, it's like so special that our community has these employees. It's also very hard on, my kids miss going to where they eat, where they saw their, employees are like
Of course,
our
yeah.
family, right?
Yeah, of
like they're
course.
like our family.
Of course, mine as well. Yeah. So, I mean, that's one reason why I've said my only interest is in trying to be helpful, trying to be of service, trying to help the Palisades come back. I feel like I am in a position because my house didn't burn down that I have a little bit more in reserve. Like I still, it's a nightmare for me. I'm battling insurance. We've suffered losses, all of that. But I can handle that, and so I feel grateful that I'm able to try and be helpful, to try and be part of bringing the
I love
community
that.
back.
I think that's what we need. We need there's so many residents that are like, oh, I'm just going to like let our lot sit there. And like when the community comes back, then we'll decide like what we're going to do. We bought a house in Manhattan, or we bought a house somewhere else 'cause
Right.
we could afford to just buy another house. And that's amazing. That's all great. But if we don't have our residents coming to support and coming to rebuild and coming to support small business that wants to come back and needs that presence, we just get into this cycle that's just not
Yeah.
moving fast enough.
And that's a relatively small number of people who can afford to do that. I think there are a lot
True.
of people, more people who would like to come back.
I actually feel like right now
and
there's a
can't.
lot of people. Like there's a lot of people renting while they rebuild.
Yeah.
Like the Highlands is
Yeah.
a lot of my generation, people I grew up with that are from the Palisades, they're not going anywhere. It's the only place they've ever lived. They're back. They're back. They're in the town, like they're renting in the Highlands, and they're trying to figure out what to do with their rebuilds. And so you're right. It is a small group of people that are sort of diehards.
Right.
They're in there. They're trying to help as much as they can.
For sure. And throughout all of this, your family has also, in addition to the fires, suffered a lot of personal loss as well.
Yes.
Right. We had Lili,
Yes.
your sister-in-law, on the podcast, and for those of you who
The tiger. She's the tiger.
yeah, she's amazing. She's
the tiger.
Wonderful. She's such a great friend. I'm gonna see her later, and Lili is Mike's sister-in-law. So Mike is Lili's husband, Damon, who passed. Mike is Damon's brother.
Yes.
And you were with him on that.
So yeah, I mean, I think I've got into the story with you a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
My brother and I were best friends. Man,
yeah.
you're gonna get me.
You wanted to come on here.
I asked for it.
You asked for
I
it.
asked for it. But you know what? It's something that I take with me every day.
Yeah.
It's man, and I went to therapy for a long time for this.
Mm-hmm.
My brother and I were best friends. We were the Geller brothers. Both of us born and raised in the Palisades, grew up skateboarding, surfing together, riding motorcycles, all the extreme sports that you would think come with growing up in California and in a small town. And we did it together, everything together.
He was a little older than you, right?
He was 6 years older than me. He was my role model, my hero, the guy I wanted to tag along with at any chance I could get. many times my brother would tell my parents, he's not coming with me. He can't hang out with my friends, My dad ultimately allowed me to move in with him my senior year at Pali High. Well, actually, I had just left Pali High, I should say. I did not actually graduate from Pali High. I was the first year that Pali High took ninth grade. The school system switched at a certain point.
Oh,
Like our elementary schools went from first to sixth, and then junior high was 7, 8, 9. Like John,
Right.
John is Kaye's
Yes,
husband,
my husband.
who went to Samo High, also a very local guy. So I was the first class ever of ninth grade at Pali High, which is a very interesting dynamic at that point, right? You're a ninth grader on the same campus with seniors, guys that also looked up to my brother, a couple years younger than him, right? My brother was basically a semi-professional skateboarder, very accomplished surfer. So he had, sort of paved the way for me.
Yeah.
He paved the way for me. Right. And we went surfing one night. It was a big tradition. A lot of us Palisadian guys that are in the surfing culture and community, because LA is so saturated, so you can imagine what the 405 looks like. The beaches and surfing looks like that too. Yeah. There's a lot of high traffic, and so you try to pick off waves when you can. We'd show up on the full moons. There'd be 3 people out there. We were not necessarily alone. We were the only 2 surfing left at that time at 11:45, but there were people making bonfires on the beach, partaking in some greenery, whatever it is that they do late at night on the beach. And we were trading waves back and forth. Actually, my brother was always like, come on, let's go, hurry up. He was always, I don't want to say pushing, motivating me to get going, right? Yeah. So he was out there first. I actually watched him take a couple waves before I even entered the water. And I was like so excited because we were by ourselves and it was really fun. And then I was in the water, we were trading back and forth, and about, I don't know, maybe 35, 45 minutes into us surfing. Well, I should back up. My brother would have this like habit of, he would just leave things. We'd be at a party and he would just disappear. He wouldn't say I'm leaving. It would be like a luncheon in the middle of the day, and he'd be like, he wouldn't say, all right.
The Irish goodbye.
He would just Irish goodbye. He would just disappear, right? So a bunch of times when we'd gone night surfing, I would turn around and he'd already be at the showers, done, and I'd be out there by myself in the dark. And so before we even went out, I was like, dude, don't do that shit that you do. Don't leave me out there. If you leave, tell me.
Yeah.
Okay? So we had traded a bunch of different waves, and like all of a sudden it got really quiet and dark, and I'm looking around and I don't see him. And I'm looking at the stairs and I'm thinking he did an Irish exit and left me out there alone. Right. So I'm like, screw this. I'm out of here. I mean, it only had been like literally not even 5 minutes. I'm like looking around, where is he? It's been 5 minutes. So I'm like, all right, I'm out of here. Now, one of the cardinal rules in surfing is you don't paddle in. You take a wave, and when you're done, you go in. And this is one of the very few times that I just turned around and started paddling in. I'm like, I'm out of here. Something was off.
Right.
And as I'm paddling in, I take maybe 3-4 strokes, and I come up on him on his surfboard face down in the water. Yeah. So at that point, I just, I had done junior lifeguards. I've been in the water. I've been surfing in areas that are very big surf. I just immediately rolled him over, got him into a position where, I was kind of trying to talk to him and give him a little tap in the face and say, hey, hey, hey. And at that point I could see that we were in real distress. And I backpedaled him like you would a drowning person to the sand. Lucky enough, that night the tide was pretty high. And so there wasn't any rocks, and I was able to just go straight onto the beach. And I had already been screaming, help, help, help.
Oh, it must have been so terrifying.
Now I can even kind of fathom what it was like after, I went to trauma therapy for a year. My therapist, he kind of attributed this as to like when you see your comrade blown up in war. Yeah. Right. And I remember now that like I was just in focus like mode. Like I don't even know how I got him from the water to the beach. People had already started rushing me. There was already somebody on the phone calling 911. I have tried to reach this woman so many times and I couldn't find her after, but I wanted to reach her so badly and thank her.
Yeah. We had the same thing with Molly, you know, the person who called, I don't know, I think you know this, but the person who dialed 911 and sat there and waited in her car while Emerson went home, we could never find her either.
So weird.
It's a strange feeling.
And she called Lili and she called my wife. And I had the number. I called that number so many times and I could not. This woman, it just would go straight to, and no message. It would just, you'd hear like, it would just, you know, like, no, like, hey, this is so-and-so, call me back. Nothing.
I almost think like these, like angels appear or something.
It really has been so surreal, the whole process. And then, you know, it took a minute for the paramedics to figure out how to get down the road. Topanga's kind of tricky. It's down below. There's like an access road, which usually has a gate. And so I literally performed CPR with 2 other people, blowing in his mouth, you know, 5 pumps, blowing in his mouth, 5 pumps, rolling him on his side. I mean, it felt like 20 minutes. It felt like at least 20, 25 minutes before anybody actually showed up. And then it was like Martians, people in space. It felt like people in spacesuits just coming down, and they just pushed us all out of the way, and they started life-saving measures.
Right.
And at that point, you know, Jamie called my father, called Lili, and people started to show up. But when Lili showed up, you know, they had been working on my brother for several minutes, and he wasn't responding to the life-saving stuff, and he ultimately was pronounced dead at the scene.
I'm so sorry.
And
I loved him too.
That's the story. That's my story. You know, then
was in what year was that? It was right before COVID, I remember, right?
Right before COVID.
So it was like
7 years ago now, 6 years ago now. Yeah. I mean, that was the first time that I had, you know, been face to face with a dead person. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but that was the first time I had ever, you know, this person died in my arms, basically.
Yeah,
right?
and the person you were closest to.
And then 2 weeks later, my father-in-law, who was extremely influential in my life, you know, my wife and I have been together since we were teenagers. He was like another father to me. I had to go through that with him. And he passed away while holding our hands in the hospital 2 weeks later.
He had cancer, right?
He had a really rare form of leukemia. So it's just been like, now
so
we're
much.
like, just like, what is
What
going
else,
on
right?
here,
I
right?
know,
Like,
I mean,
you know,
yeah.
then COVID,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Then the fires.
Yeah.
And then this past December, my mom, who was also my best friend, spoke to her every single day, dies of pancreatic cancer in 2 years, like barely 2 years.
I'm so sorry.
And so I mean, I can't imagine, you know, you've been through it. I can't imagine, you know, but it's like, I'm just like, dude.
You do reach a point where you're like,
how much more can I take?
Anything else? I mean, I felt like that with us. Like, I felt like when our house didn't burn down, in some way, I did feel like if it had, I felt like it was going to be the thing that really like broke our kids, you know, because it's like their whole lives had been, their mom was sick with cancer. The pandemic hit while I was on leave, while I was on leave with breast cancer treatment. The pandemic hit. Molly went out for a bike ride one morning and never came home. From their perspective, they never saw her again. And we told them that she was expected to be fine because that's what we were told by the hospital. and they never saw her again.
The hairs on the back of my neck just stood up.
I mean, and I'm sure that hits you because they lost their sibling. And so like when you were describing like your father being called, that hit me too because I lost my child. And so I think about that like, oh my God, he had to receive the call to go down there and
my dad
go
was
to that scene. Yeah.
shooken up. You know, my dad is like, you know, all throughout our years, my dad and all my friends, you know, my house was that house, right? Everybody would come after school.
Right.
Everybody would eat all the food. Yeah. My dad would be like, if you take the last Coca-Cola, I will, you know, you will be thrown, you're done. Yeah. Like you'll be thrown out of this house,
we
right?
call him Daddy G.
Right. So we all know Daddy G.
Daddy G.
And, you know, I know that he's always been so strong. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Even through that,
yeah.
He, you know, he has 2 other children. You have other children. Mm-hmm. He had to be so strong, but I know that was, it's still, you know, it still affected him. And then now in December, like I've never seen my dad cry.
Really?
Until my mom passed away. Wow. This is a unit that was 55 years of marriage, and now my dad is a widower. I can barely get through a lunch or a dinner without him starting to tear up. They were in such love. This was Damon's stepmother,
yes.
right? Uh-huh. My dad was divorced from Damon's mom when he was 2 years old. Right. Remarried my mom. And never looked back. And Damon's mom remarried and also had.
I always identify with Damon because I had the similar family structure. So
right?
I was
he was the middleman.
I was the middleman in my family.
Yeah.
I was the only child of my parents. My parents were very young when they had me. I was the only child. They both went on to have other families, other spouses, all of that. And so I always identified with him for that reason.
Yeah.
Because it's a tough place to be.
It is. It was very hard for my brother. You know, he didn't know where to be. He would argue with my dad and he'd go to his mom's and I'd cry and be like, please don't leave, you know, please don't leave me.
Yeah.
And then he would get in a fight with his mom and he'd come back and I'd be so happy, be like, you're back, yes, you know. Ultimately, he ended up living with my dad most of the time.
What happened to their home? Your father's home?
So my parents moved out of the Palisades probably when I went for my first year of college. Well, my sister, I should say, you know, we have a little sister. She's 7 years younger than us. She was the princess of the family. She got to attend, you know, Lili Geller. She went to lycée her whole life.
The French school.
The French school in the Palisades. And then the French
on the corner
school,
near my house.
Right, on Marquez. And then she transferred from there to the Overland campus. Mm-hmm. And then after she graduated, she went to university in Paris in France for a year. And basically, like when she was pretty much graduated, my parents were like, "We're out of here." I mean,
right? Where did they live? I mean, because I always saw them, you know, in the Palisades. Where did
my
they
dad?
move
Okay,
to?
my dad. When my dad first came to the Palisades, he bought a house on the Bluffs. Right, this amazing house on the Bluffs for $250,000.
That's incredible.
Okay.
And what would the?
And I remember, like, I was my dad was not a builder, but he had an eye, right? So he knew, he still does. He knows how to build retail stores, build homes. You know, he has an eye. He was in the restaurant business. He created a very successful restaurant in West Hollywood. The Newsroom, if for any of you guys that remember the Newsroom across from the Ivy restaurant, that was my dad's for almost 15, 20 years until they eventually, him and the investors all sold out. Anyway, my dad was like, I'm going to buy this house on the Bluffs on Via de las Olas. And he probably spent at that time, I mean, I feel like he's told me the number, but I want to say like around another $300,000. Like he built a whole new house for $300,000, like took the thing down to the freaking foundation. And
is this like in the early 70s? What
I would say, let's say I'm a 76 baby. So this was
77. So we're close.
And my sister was not born yet. My sister was born in this house.
Okay. So maybe mid 70s.
I remember my mom made this room for my sister, all white wicker, and all the just dresses. My mom was so ecstatic to have a girl after having my brother and I just terrorize, all the time. And my sister this white wicker, like I remember her taking her diapers off and like going at the white wicker. I'll never forget it. My dad just losing his mind.
Yeah.
But so that was probably like, I want to say, like 70, maybe even 80.
Yeah.
Maybe even 80.
Right. Different time.
So we built
sure.
this amazing house with a big guest house in the back, and I was always so salty because my brother got to live in the guest house, and I was like, that's not fair. With this amazing pool that had a white and black checkerboard rim around the pool. I'll never forget it. The house was by the way, the house was unchanged when it burned. It had never been remodeled.
Okay.
It was exactly identical. My dad even built like a little mini doll house in the front, but like it was like a real mini house that matched the house that was my sister's doll house.
Oh. So the house you grew up in burned as well in the fire?
Yes. Yeah. Every house that I've ever lived in has burned. So when my dad ultimately was into that house for like maybe $500,000. Okay.
Yeah.
He ended up selling it to Kenny Loggins' ex-wife for $1.2 million and thought he won the lottery. Okay.
Right.
And at that point, he was doing these odd, he was kind of an investment banker. He would take these little my dad took Fromex public. He took these, he did asbestos removal companies.
He's like Damon. He
did all these like things.
He's a Renaissance man.
But like he ultimately wanted to be home with us. So like summers were with us. Like he took us motorcycle riding.
Really nice.
He drove us out to, Gorman. He took us on, trips to Palm Springs and whatever. We were always going somewhere. We had a timeshare in Lake Arrowhead, so we were up in, Big Bear, and
You had a great childhood.
We were
sounds
hanging
like,
out
for the most part.
It was.
You had a better one than I did. Mine was rough.
It was. I mean, my dad.
Yeah.
My dad was not a stay-at-home dad, but he was a very hands-on, present dad for his sons, which was a great example for me. Yeah. I try to be that way for my three sons as much as I possibly can.
Are.
And now, as much as I can, it's more difficult, but for Jonah and Delilah, they're great kids.
Jonah and Delilah, for our listeners, our audience,
those are niece and nephew.
Right, that's Damon's kids.
Lily and Damon's children.
Yes.
But in general, he thought to himself, God, I really made it at this point, right? So he took the money, put it in the bank. And then my dad was a friend of one of the Palisades' oldest, let's call him the first spec guy. Okay, this guy, Paul Zahler, who used to build these, who came in to do a lot of spec stuff, a lot of stuff in the Alphabet Streets, a lot of stuff in the Huntington area on Al Morial. And my dad would I don't know, he would work out these deals with this guy where he would lease these houses for a year. So at that point, we started moving around a lot. I lived on Bienvenida. I lived on Al Morial. I lived on Las Casas. We lived we lived on Sunset.
All these different homes in the Palisades.
So I've lived on every different corridor.
And they all burned?
Yes, except for the one on Menorca on Sunset was survived. But the house on Bienvenida, we had one house that was next to the park, which was one of my favorites. I used to hop the back fence. I was very into basketball, played basketball for Pali High when I was in 9th grade as a freshman. I would hop, which is brings back another aspect of the community, the demolishing of the old Palisades basketball gym.
Right, just happened, huh? Just like this last week.
I played my own little league in that gym.
Right.
My kids played little league in that gym.
What was it like for you to see that? Did you cry?
It was definitely hard. I don't know that I cried. The fire has pushed us to Malibu.
Yeah.
So we're doing a lot of our sporting events in Calabasas, and I see these gyms that are just gorgeous, that have state-of-the-art infrastructure. I mean, they look like mini NBA level gyms.
Which we definitely did not have in
with
the Palisades.
bathrooms that you could actually go in and feel clean and
Ours
use,
was super
which
old.
we did not have in the Palisades.
Yeah.
It's in the original building. It's been there for over 50 years. And I do believe that it is time that we have a facility that matches the caliber of community that we are.
Yeah.
The politics behind how that's happening, that's a different story.
Right.
And we can get into that. But it was very hard to see that structure.
Right.
I've spent hours and hours. So anyway, one of the houses that I lived in, which burned down, was right next to the tennis courts on Al Marial, the first 2 tennis courts. And so I literally was able to hop the back fence and be at the Palisades Park. That was like my stomping ground, like every single day after school, So yeah.
You've just been through so much. I mean, I think, that it's easy to forget that most people are carrying around a lot of pain and grief. We've all lost people. We all have a story. And if you sit down and you talk to people, that's part of why I like this podcast. It's just talking to normal people about their normal lives. And what you find is none of us are alone in our struggles. We have different, they may be a little bit different.
Which is so the beauty of our community, right?
Yeah.
I have friends that I've known since the first grade. You've been there plenty of time, not taking anything from that. But I am so grateful that I have friends from the first grade that are still, I talk to them daily, that have kids, and our kids are friends.
Yeah. John is the same with his
exactly.
And
John being from Santa Monica, it's very similar. Yeah,
we
absolutely.
Go on vacation with those families. Our kids are friends, and it's really special.
I feel so grateful for that. Just in general, I really appreciate that, which is why I would never leave, abandon, give up the fight in the Palisades in any way, shape, or form. Like, it is the only place that I have ever known.
What I will say is that, since the fires, we've all gone through and are still going through this journey home together. And we've been through such a trauma and loss. And of course, people move on. And a lot of people never understood in the first place or didn't want to understand the magnitude of loss that this community has suffered and the amount of help that's still needed. And one thing that has, I think, been, I don't want to say a silver lining because, that's kind of an overused term, but I have seen the community really come together in a way that we were a close community before, but it's like now that we have had to go through this together, I know every single person on my street before, and some of them I'm like, yeah, I wish I knew you before. Why didn't I know you before?
Right.
So it's like when you have to, you're kind of like in the trenches together.
Yeah.
So in the end, when, as many of us as possible are back, it's going to be amazing because we all just are so bonded in a way that's different from waving at somebody across the street. It's like we have been in the trenches together, trying to help each other, trying to get home. And that's why I've said I would never have a negative view of someone or disparage anyone who has a different view from me about how we best move forward as the Pacific Palisades and on a broader level, at the city level or the state level. And we are people who are, tend to vote differently, different political parties. And I think it's really important that we are able, just as a society, to be able to disagree without being disagreeable. And I feel like that's kind of where we've gone astray in a big way.
I think definitely, I mean, just, I want to still, I guess, still stay on this theme of recovery and getting people back. There are a lot of my generation of people, unfortunately, who maybe have, got inherited their homes or they were living with their parents, still or back with their parents, or that had, that and their parents never thought their whole community would burn down, or they themselves never thought their whole community would burn down.
Right. Well, whoever thinks that, right?
Right.
No one
right,
expects that.
Right. My house actually didn't burn until the 8th. Like the store burned first, and then I really started panicking. I was like, "Whoa, dude, the town is on fire!"
Yeah.
Like
it was horrifying to see all. I mean, I stayed up that whole night, and just all of our friends, we were all sending each other.
Yeah, we were. I was
and-
on the
I mean, it was
phone
horrifying
watching the news
seeing all
on
this
the
stuff.
phone.
Yeah.
On the phone with Elise Walker going, "It's burning. Do you see it's burning?"
Yeah.
My other fellow businesses that were next to me, oh my God, it's burning. But there are a lot of people, Kay, unfortunately, that just will not have the means or need help. Like, I've tried to get involved with developers and, builders and ways that we can build affordable housing and get this generation of people that don't have the necessary means to get back. How do we get them, funding that they need or grants that they need or to actually get them into reasonable, homes? This picture of the Palisades being this like super rich, affluent, they're cool. The Palisades is cool. Like they're going to be fine. That's so far from
Reality.
the reality.
I know. I've tried to dispel that myth as well.
And so I without, getting too politically crazy with just within the community, you sit on the board of the community council, there's the Chamber of Commerce, we have our recovery centers, and like you said, we all have sort of a different opinion or see it from a different standpoint of how things have progressed during this recovery. I realize that everyone's ultimate goal is to do the best they can with the tools that they have to, help our community and help. But like you said, we're different people. We have different opinions. We have different views. Someone sees it from the tail side. Someone sees it from the head side. I have other ideas that I feel like could benefit the community further, basically.
Right. Yeah. So bring him forward. What are you doing?
I feel like,
Why don't you come on the community council?
that's funny you say that.
The elections are coming up.
That's really funny you say
Yes.
that. I've gotten a little taste of board life. Look, I'm not someone who's, is on this board, that board, who's, been so community connected that way. This is my second year serving on one of the oldest homeowners association boards in the Palisades. I live in the Palisades Country Estates. And I'm happy to have been reelected for a second term on the homeowners board. So I'm getting a little taste of like what that means to represent. We have 80 homes in our community. We lost 11. Only 3 are being rebuilt out of or I think 4 now. 4. Another one just started out of the 11 that burned down. So I'm getting a little taste of board life. I'm still young to this, so to speak, but I would love to potentially go for the community council.
You should.
Once I kind of have, I can't help other people necessarily until I can help myself.
This
and
is true. Yes.
Feel like myself
Yes.
is reestablished.
Right.
But once we get the store kind of up and running, and once the house is further along, it might not be this election, but maybe the next one. I would love to serve on one of the community councils in the Palisades. I've been doing a lot of research on what the community council, what is their job? Like, what is their ultimate job? And other cities, and what I'm seeing is that, and I could be wrong, educate me, but they're supposed to be advocating for the community and liaisoning with the city to, push the city to come in when needed, fixing infrastructure, roads, sidewalks, funding for things that we may need. And right now, I feel like our community council is doing the best they can with what they have.
I promise you they are. As someone who sits on the community council. And,
in the beginning, right? Yeah. When I hate to when Caruso was coming in to build his mall, There were town hall meetings. People were concerned. You know, we remember the old Palisades of Mort's and Mobile Station and, you know, Moonlight Madness. And, you know, we remember what that was all about. So there was a lot of concern from locals on what our new town, like we've gone through some shifts, right? I personally have gone through a few shifts in what our community looks like. And we're about to go through another big one.
Yes.
Right. So some of us, like, yes, we're all about future and technology and burying lines. And there's all these things that should be happening. But even in the beginning, we were kind of like, look, how much do we want to relinquish our old school town to this developer that wants to come in and build mall-like complexes and take over this type of stuff? And so for me right now, it's this like balance, like who's coming to save us, not save us, but who's getting involved, who's coming to help, what is the city prepared to do for us, which we know is not much. What is the proper balance to get our community rebuilt, but not like sell our souls to this developer that is going to, you know, which is what was going on in the beginning. How much of this did we want him to do? There were promises that were not made. We were going to have a small police station and we were going to have, you know, stuff was going to happen that sort of fell through the cracks a little bit. And the type of businesses that were going to be brought were talked about, and that kind of got a little askew too, with kind of big box stores that were just, you know, paying rents, not necessarily like not serving all of us community, right? Like that few little handful of people that could shop in a certain way or spend in a certain way.
High-end stores.
Right.
Yeah, unfortunately, those are the ones that can afford the high-end prices.
So now, and the rents that were going to be proposed, right? And how much what small mom and pops could afford that type of, you know, rents and such. And now we're going to go through another change, right? There's actually a hearing going on today while we're doing this about, you know, making both of our sides of Sunset match. And it's always been kind of like the Caruso side and then the other side of the tracks, right? Like that development, in my opinion, is designed to keep people in. I know there's, you know, talk of spillover, but as a retailer for 20 years in the Palisades, there was not a lot of spillover. People come from other communities that they get incentivized by him to shop at, you know, there's the Caruso card, which gives you 25% off at all of the Caruso villages. I'm sure I don't know if you know about that, but
I do not know about that. No,
so
I don't have that.
I would walk around the Caruso village on Saturday and Sunday, and I would be like, I don't recognize a lot of faces here.
Right.
You know, where necessarily did these people sort of decide to come, you know, here from, right? Oh. Which is all good. I'm all for bringing bodies to the community. That's good for everybody. But if there's no spillover on those bodies and they're just going to see that destination, park in that destination and leave that destination, then it's kind of like, you know, one way street. So we are about to go through another change.
Yes. We
know that Rick he loves the Palisades, and I love him for that. It's, you know, his little spot. But, you know, now he's going to have the park, and now he wants to have both sides of Sunset, and he wants to get the pink building. And, like, what are we going to look like after all of this? And I know that the community council is all for him and all for him doing what he wants to do.
I guess a couple things.
Yeah.
The community council.
Stop me at any time. Yeah. Please.
So the community council is not a monolith by any means. You know, we are not all kind of one and the same. I serve on the community council not because I ran for a position. And
I don't want to make this a community council argument either.
Yeah. So I'll just say, like, just so you know. And I serve at the request of the local public elementary school, Marquez Charter Elementary School. I serve in the ed role. So because I'm sort of a yes person.
And then I wanted to ask you that just really quickly on the ed role. we have 2 elementary schools. Is there someone that's a representative of the community council, let's say, that's from the Palisades Elementary School?
It's not every school.
It's not every
It
school.
is not every school, and anyone could be in that position. So my alternate, who attends if I am not there, is a St. Matthew's person. It could be anyone. Again, in my experience,
That's interesting.
in my
Actually,
experience,
that you said that.
10% of the people do 90% of the work. And I've always been in the 10% my entire life. I'm somebody who is a yes person. So if I'm asked to serve, I will, if I can do it, I say yes. So when I was asked to serve in this capacity, I said, absolutely, sure I will. I'll be glad to help. And that's what I do there. And I'll just say from my observation that it's, that people show up, the members of the public show up for a public comment. You could go there any meeting. We just had one last night. So I spent all of my last evening there on the PPCC meeting and then at our synagogue serving on the board as a volunteer. And I get nothing from this other than the satisfaction of being of service, because that's something really important to my soul. It's why I went to law school. It's something I'm very passionate about. So I'll just say the council.
I'm getting more and more feeling of that draw lately.
Yeah.
I'm getting that feeling.
I have it
a
in the
lot
bones,
more.
It's like, and much to my husband's dismay, because, we met in law school and he's like, wait, I didn't know, like, you were into this, that you wanted to pursue all of these.
You guys are both attorneys.
We are both attorneys. We met in law school at UCLA. As I said, I was on medical leave from my law firm while undergoing cancer treatment at the time of the pandemic. So I spent 20 years in private practice at a large law firm. Our office was in Santa Monica. And I was not expecting to stop working. I got very sick right after I had a baby. I went through years of treatment to try to save my life, which was by no means like a given, because I had a very advanced case, an aggressive case. So I had to go through that. And then during that, I lost my 12-year-old daughter. And by the end of it all, I was a completely different person. And just so happens as well that after those 20 years of work, I'd managed to pay off my loans because I didn't have any help ever in life. Not going to school, not doing anything ever. My family was the opposite of help. They were and are. I don't want to say like, it's not a nice way of putting it, but like leeches. They suck. Money, energy, time. Not all of them. My sister's amazing. Not all of them, but definitely, throughout my life, my family's been a source of taking, wanting, holding me back, and I've had to do things in spite of them, not with their help. So I finished, I paid off my loans, and Molly passed, and so I didn't want to continue doing my law firm work anymore. And so I started the Molly Steinsapir Foundation, which is a nonprofit that literally just serves to help those in need, because that's something Molly was very passionate about. And so we do a great deal in the Palisades. We have since we started 5 years ago, and definitely since the fires. We've been solely focused on the Palisades and Eaton communities. So that's sort of like where I come from. I also, have a long history of being active in government. I started, when I lived in Fresno, I was working for Dianne Feinstein's office in her district office in Fresno. Then I moved to San Francisco and I worked in that office. I worked in the DA's office in San Francisco. I worked for the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. So I'm somebody who's really passionate about government. I'm somebody a nerd who follows this.
Kids, stay in school. Okay? School was impossible for me.
Yeah.
We'll call it dyslexia, learning disabilities, whatever.
Right.
But I think having that, that legal background, there's only I only feel these days that, I have 3 sons, they're getting ready to go to college. Mm-hmm. I got to pay for that college.
Yeah.
There's only a few things in college that I would be willing to pay for.
Yeah.
An attorney, or just having that,
mm-hmm.
that, being a lawyer, that would be one of them. I think that's a really strong, heavy base background to have that. So yeah, I mean, amazing. All those things.
I mean, that's just, this is my background. So this is what motivates me. This is why I do what I do. And, and because I honestly, I mean,
you get a communications degree, you're not necessarily going to work in the DA's office. You know what I mean?
Yes, I have a skill set that is still very useful for people, right? Like I can put my skill set to use. I don't have to put it to use for corporate clients that pay me because I don't need it anymore. I'm simple. I don't need anything else in life. Nothing. I'm fine. I'm good.
After what we've been through,
we don't. And
I am so on that page.
I come from nothing. I grew up poor. Everything I have, I created and built myself. Together with John, we had very little assistance ever. So I
feel you.
I'm really happy to just.
I mean, you guys remind me of me and Jamie. Like, it was us against.
And there's a lot of
everybody.
There's a lot of satisfaction in that, and I don't want to give my kids too much help either because you got to do it. That's what creates grit.
Just enough.
It creates
enough.
It creates
right?
strength.
We're just there enough. But we, especially in this generation, in the social media, TikTok, we have to create some strength. We're Xers, right? We're Generation Xers. You know how they talk about us. So watch out for the Generation Xers.
Yeah, we're tough, right? Tough. We're very tough. We're like latchkey kids.
We've had to go through it.
My family had no idea where I was when I was growing
today,
up.
And
ever.
Your son is a little bit younger than my kids, having almost a 20-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 12-year-old.
I got Nate. Nate's almost 16.
Yeah, there you go. Nate's almost 16. That's right. I'm sorry, I forgot. It's man, they really have like a different perspective.
They're in a whole different world.
It's a whole nother universe.
They have their own different struggles and everything.
I'm yelling at my kid last night to put his dishes in the dishwasher. Just like simple. Like if you have your own apartment, what are you going to do? You're going to let it all just stack up, and like by the time it's this high, you're going to be like, oh, I can't do it. So I hear you.
I want my kids to go into the military. Eli and I were just in New York, and we visited this amazing ship, aircraft carrier, and we're on there, and it was on Memorial Day, and we're meeting all these people in the service, and most of my family served, which despite all the problems my family gave me, they gave me USAA insurance because they served.
I thought about that for a second. I attended Army Navy military school in Carlsbad. I went to Army Navy, which is one of the top feeders for West Point. And I thought about it for a second. Just a second.
Well, I mentioned it to Eli, and he was like, "I'm not going to die." I was like, "You don't have to."
I used to use that. I used to use that for my kids. My dad ultimately took me out of there because I really became like unstable. I was getting in fights. It was a tough place. This was before Paris Hilton did her documentary on boarding schools. We were hazed. Like we were treated way differently than what the school is run now. And it was tough. Up at 5:45, white glove inspections. They would throw all your shit out of the closet on the ground and tell you to put it all back. They'd rip your bed apart, tell you to put it all back. Cleaning toilets with toothbrushes. Like we went through all that.
I want this for my kids.
Right?
Like I just bought Nate this book that's called like Make Your Bed.
My dad would hold this against me for like all through high school, and he'd be like, I have a free credit there. Like I'll send you back, And that was part of being scared straight, so to speak, And I think my kids, I use that. I use that to my kid. I'm like, look, I will send you. Like, I will send you. Like,
And when I say that, by the way, I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, obviously, I don't want them to go somewhere where they're going to be abused or hazed, but I view it again. I'm somebody who's about service, so I think of Rahm Emanuel, who's somebody I really admire as someone who's a politician who's done a lot, who's probably going to run for president. His children, I think he has 3 grown children, and they all serve. They are all in the Peace Corps. They're in the service, and that's what I hope my kids take from
me.
Very
admirable. I mean,
So that's what I'm about, and
I wouldn't oppose it if one of my children came to me and said, "Hey, I probably would be like, well, what part of them? Why don't you go fly fighter jets? Like, I would probably like try to guide them into one of the various various avenues. But I wouldn't oppose that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's where I come from, and that's what I kind of bring to everything that I do. So like I said, I'm a yes person. So especially post October 7th, when people ask me to get involved with any sort of Jewish efforts, cause, whatever, sure. Yeah. Sign me up. I'll be there. That's what I do.
You're all in.
It's too much. I mean, it's a little bit crazy, but that's just what I do. And I feel like, I've been given the gift of life when it was not a given. I've seen, like you, I have seen death up close, and not just with Molly. Being very involved in the cancer world, I've lost my friends. I've been with them through their cancer journey and seen them die, literally. So I just don't take it for granted. And so like every day I'm just out there trying to like make the most of my time. And that's part of what I'm doing here. And that's part of what I'm doing, in the Palisades. That's part of what I'm doing more broadly with the Molly Steinsapir Foundation, with, trying to help in any way, And so eventually
This cancer thing is just,
it's really brutal. Yeah.
Watching my mom go through this, it has changed as how could it not? It has changed my whole world and my whole, I don't know if it's appreciation or what, just my perspective, my awareness of what families, people, individuals, brothers, sisters, mothers have to go through to watch this. It's so fucked up.
It really is. Yeah, it really is.
Not to curse on your very
please. We curse here. We're in the obliterated place. There's a lot of curse words that are happening here.
My mom went into this fucking trial, and I kept telling my dad, it's only so much you can. My parents were such a unit. Yeah. I was never allowed to go in my parents' room unless I knocked. Our kids are in and out of our room. They're in our bathroom. They're showering in our shower. There's no privacy for Jamie and I. I'm sure it's similar for you guys.
We try, but
my parents,
don't listen.
It was law.
Right.
You do not go in our bathroom.
I'm trying to have law in my house. I'm trying to have law and order in the house. And what do you do with them when they don't follow?
I guess Jamie and I.
I mean, I try.
They say opposites attract, right? Jamie and I are fucking polar opposites. Yeah. I mean, we really are. Like, yes, we agree on a lot of things, but ultimately we are opposites when it comes to discipline, when it comes to supporting, when it comes to, hard knock. I'm the hard knock guy. Like, this is how it is. It's done, and my wife is kind of, so they're in our room, they're in our bathroom. Ford is still showering in my shower, even though he has his own bathroom and he has his own shower. My parents were like, do not come in our room. Don't ever come in our bathroom. That is like,
Nate got in deep trouble because he was told to get out of
limits.
my bathroom when I was in there getting ready, and he wouldn't get out, and he got in big trouble.
And so that was like, I tried to communicate with my dad and mom about, let's try immunotherapies. Let's go to Germany. Let's try this. I was willing to have my mom do anything.
Yeah.
And it was just, my dad was like, I've done this. I've read everything. Which my dad does. My dad reads everything. Yeah.
Well, pancreatic is so tough.
I almost feel it's hard because I feel like I was like on the outskirts, but like they were such a unit. Like it was like ultimately their decisions.
Yeah.
I couldn't. There's only so much I could do.
There's only so much you can ever do.
And my sister too. My sister and my mom were like mother daughter besties.
Yeah.
And they were I feel like my dad wanted this trial. We went in this trial and 50-50 chance, but of course my mom got it. And to me, I feel like the trial killed my mom. And I know that my dad probably thinks the trial kept my mom alive, kept my mom alive, but I watched this drug my mom was a very, my mom was very vain, how she looked, and she didn't want to lose her hair. So she refused any of that like stuff. And this drug was, helped her to not lose that much hair, which was very important to her. And, she ended up, is now state of California. You can do assisted,
Right.
and, they call it quality of life or whatever it is. You can choose certain ways that they allow you to do this, right? So my mom always said, look, when I'm done, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, that's all there is to it. Right. So ultimately, the trial, I watched her body just go from, 125, 35 pounds to 90 pounds. And, eventually, her skin, it was her skin rashes and this, and, going through it. And eventually, she chose the day, and we were all there, and doctor showed up and mixed 4 ounces of little bit of liquid this much. And, she drank it, and within literally 3 minutes, she was gone.
Oh my God.
Like, we were all there holding her hand, and it's crazy. But like, back to the kids, we're trying to create this unit that is, impenetrable, but this generation just makes it really hard.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and again, going back to like, they've all just been like through so much, and it's all,
they really
it's
have.
all during all of it, this social media and the phones and all that is all part of it. So it's like, I always,
their access is crazy.
It's crazy.
Like, I remember when my dad brought home the first suitcase phone,
Right,
we thought, dude, your dad has a phone. Whoa.
Yeah.
What is that? Like, it goes in the car? Whoa, how cool is that?
Yeah.
And these kids are just like,
I know.
All day, and you can't teach them anything because they've already learned it on the phone. Like, you can pull up a YouTube video on how to do anything. My son's like, Dad, I'll fix the car. Like, let me just watch this YouTube video.
Yeah.
I can't work a camera to this day without calling Mason into the room to be like, what setting do I need and how do I?
No, we're like the old people.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. We've all been through so much, and like I said, I really think it's important, and I'm glad that we can set aside differences, like who do we support politically, and really get back to like, what do we share in common, like as human beings. And once we do that, once we
I think
get back
everybody
to that,
ultimately has their reasons. I can't sit and say why somebody else does what they do. I can only say what is right for me.
Right.
And I think everybody needs to respect that.
Yeah.
I think that's the ultimate goal, whether it be our local community, whether it be our city, whether it be our president, whether it be whatever it is. I can only do what feels right to me. This whole thing has been so blown out of proportion about everybody trying to influence others to do something that they do, and they think they should do it because you should do it because I do it. Everyone has their shit. Everyone has to deal with their shit. You have to do what's right for you. Kaye has to do what's right for Kaye. I can only do what's right for me. And if we can't respect that, then what do we got?
Yeah, definitely. And at the end of the day, as I've said, I'm about trying to be useful and helpful, and if my preferred candidate doesn't win, I'm still there to try to help. So that's what I'm about.
And you are more than welcome to do that. You can express what's right for you. And that's really all that we can do. That's all that I try to do. I'm not trying to say you should do this because of this.
Well,
that's just I can't, if you don't, you got to do what's right for you. I can't tell you if you don't think this way. Well, what's your problem? It's ultimately, you got to do what's right for you, what you feel is right for you. Unfortunately, we have this thing.
Yeah, the phone.
That, It's
know.
listening to us right now.
I know.
It's gonna as soon as I
start
open
showing
this
us
thing,
some crazy stuff
it's
after
gonna start
this.
showing
I
us
know.
crazy stuff.
I know. It's
And
so weird when it
everyone's
shows us
gonna
what we
pick this,
talked about.
We're gonna
right?
pick this up and we're gonna go, what? She said what? He said what?
I know.
You know, and then and then it's
know.
gonna emotionally charge us.
So weird.
And it's really
Yeah.
hard for people, you know, to look at things objectively and not get emotionally charged.
I know.
And when we are moving in an emotional way, whether we like it or not, we say things maybe in that moment that are haste. We do things that maybe, you know, like we put our mouth out there before we take a step forward. And that's really hard.
I agree, especially when you can just blast it out, you know.
You can just
tap it out and let it fly.
You can just let your emotions
let
go
it fly.
berserko through this thing.
Especially after everyone's been getting you all riled up. So just, I guess, as we like are near the end of our time, I just want to say thank you so much for coming in and sharing. You know, you really have been through such a great deal. Still going through it. And I'm just really like glad that we're in community together. And I'm glad that, you know, at the end of the day, we sit down, we're still friends. And I think it's so important when people sit down together, it's so different than
it's so different. If we could stay off of this,
stay off the phones,
and we can have, you know, look, we've known each other a long time. Yeah. We went through the presidential elections. We talked about it at dinners, and it's so much different than when we're talking about it on this thing.
Yeah,
you know. I think it would be so much more effective and respectful and positive if we could, you know, do less of that. Hit the button and send that shit out.
I know. Well, that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to bring people, you know, together and even the people who tune in so that they can see that, like, you know, again, when we get back to what really matters, we're all dealing with the same fundamental issues. We're all experiencing what it's like to be fully human, and we're all trying to learn. We're all trying to grow.
You can only
trying to
do
make progress.
what works for you. You can only do what works for you.
Of course,
we're all navigating the same thing, like you said. You can only do what's right for you. Exactly. You want to ask me how I feel, what's right for me? Fine. But I'm not going to tell you what I think what should be right for you. And that's ultimately what this is about. Mm-hmm. Everybody lives in the same bubble. How do you feel about your bubble? And do what's right for you.
Definitely.
That's where I'm at.
I agree. Well, I thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it.
I always enjoy these chats. Yeah. I feel like
we covered a lot of ground. So
I feel like, you know, it's helped, you know, all this stuff for me helps me deal with, you know, my grief is every day for the people that I've lost.
Yes.
It doesn't just
never goes away. And it never will. It never will.
I know it's the same for you.
Yeah,
I don't have to say, I know it's the same for you. And so I enjoy it. It makes me feel good when I leave.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
All right. Well, audience, thank you so much for sitting with Mike and me. And until next time, I am your host, Kaye Steinsapir. Thank you for joining us on The Obliterated Place. Thank you.